We're delighted to welcome Ann Widdecombe today. Quite an appropriate way to start the year. And I don't think Ann needs very much introduction. She is one of the most visible and respected members on the Conservative benches, and that was even before she went blonde. I'm sure that one's been said a few times. But to give a bit of background, she was a Home Office Minister previously, since she was elected in 1987. She was also, in that role, she was Prisons Minister, and she had this distinction, I think, of visiting every prison in the country, which was really an eye-opening experience. And then after that, under William Hague, she was Shadow Home Secretary, one of the most memorable times of her career, I would imagine, where she established a reputation as being quite tough, a forthright Shadow Home Secretary. And that was followed by a period on the backbenches when, amongst other things, she pursued her career as a novelist, also championing the cause of the forgotten decents, the expression used, which most recently involved taking on the hoodies, the truants, the prostitutes, a whole series on ITV, but also acting a few years ago as an agony aunt in The Guardian, of all places. And from time to time, since being on the backbenches, Anne has ventured into big national political controversies. One example being the British Airways ban on employees wearing religious symbols. Another has been the opposition to the so-called A-list. And although there isn't that much material on the internet to support this, the impression given is that Ann Widdecombe is not overly enthusiastic about some of David Cameron's performance.
Nothing on the internet.
maybe we'll hear a bit more about that later. Anyway, enough of me. You've not come to hear, you've come to hear Ann Widdecombe. So please join me in welcoming Ann Widdecombe.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure to be here, particularly at the start of the year. I hope it's a great year for you, particularly for those of you who've got finals at the end of it, and for those of you who are at university for the first time, and I do hope you enjoy it and make the most of the experience. What I'm going to do today is to talk very generally about how I see politics, with a small p, in this country at the moment. And then I'm very happy to take questions on almost anything. Now, I used to say to audiences, you can ask me anything you like. And then about a year ago, for the first time in my entire political career, I got a question that I couldn't answer. Now, normally, if you don't know the answer to a question, it's terribly simple. You just waffle. Or you say to the person who's posed it, just let me go to what is underneath your concerns. Then you answer the question that's natural. But on this occasion, I couldn't even do either of those two things. I just stood there gaping like a goldfish and thinking, what on earth am I going to say? And a lady had stood up in the audience, and it wasn't even a political audience, it was a charity lunch. And she said to me with a perfectly straight face and no indication of what was coming, she said, Miss Widdecombe, please could you explain to us why anybody would want to have an affair with John Prescott? You know, I still don't know the answer to that question. But you can range as widely as you like in the questions. You can ask me about, obviously, about any aspect of current British politics. I should enter the caveat that I am not an expert on Scottish politics. But you can ask me virtually any aspect of the current political situation. You can ask about any of those excellent books which are available in all good bookshops at very reasonable prices, or indeed about any of the television work which I've been doing recently. As your chairman suggested, you can even ask do blondes have more fun. The answer is I'm not entirely certain, but there is one thing I've noticed. Ever since I've gone blonde, men now talk to me much more slowly. So, we'll begin with an overview of the current situation. What I really want to look at today is the very considerable disengagement that there is great conflicting political ideologies, capitalism and communism. And there was a real battle for the future of the globe based on political ideas. And in Britain, that battle was mirrored, obviously, not in a contest between capitalism and communism, but in a contest, and it was one, it was a struggle between capitalism and socialism. And it was socialism, it wasn't New Labour. It was neo-communism in some of its forms. And therefore, there was a serious division which everybody understood. They may not have understood the detail of philosophy. They may not have been able to quote you Marx or quote you the history of the Labour Party or what Keir Hardie said. They might not be able to do any of that. But even at the most basic, prosaic level, they understood enormous differences. This one grammar schools, that one comprehensives. This one private enterprise, that one state monopolies. This one lower taxation, that one higher spending. This one small state, that one large state. People understood that. And therefore, they were engaged on one side or the other because they believed that it was going to make a difference to the way the country was run and a difference to the way their own lives were affected as to who won the general election. So people were engaged with politics and they were engaged with political ideas and ideals and principles. And it was all there, and there was very little, there's always been some and there always will be, but there was very little noticeable apathy. It mattered to people. And people watched the serious political programmes. In those days, it used to be the Richard Dimbleby interview. They watched the serious political programmes on television. Newspapers devoted a whole page to debates in Parliament, covering not just the highlights, but the backbench speeches as well. And there was a real interest in the issues of the day,